Let's use this occasion of the beginning of a new church year to very quickly walk through the liturgical seasons as we describe them. This pattern is pretty well followed by the mainline churches, the Catholics, the Episcopalians, most Lutherans, most Methodists. We all honor, and certainly other churches too, honor the same liturgical season. And it all begins today. So what's Advent about? Well, it's about longing and desiring. See, God isn't going to give you something you don't want. That's it. Do you want God or not? Those who really make space, who increase and deepen their longing and their desiring, you'll always get what you want in the divine realm. And that's Advent. And it takes us 4 weeks to stir that desire, all leading up to the great manifestation, Epiphany, that we call Christmas. We call it the Feast of the Incarnation. Incarne, that should make sense to Spanish speakers. It means the enfleshment, entering into the body. Now notice that John's Gospel doesn't say the eternal pattern, what they call the Logos, I call the blueprint. The eternal blueprint, it doesn't say became Jesus, it says became flesh. That's a universal concept, that God took on materiality, physicality. God entered this world. And so the huge gap between God and humanity is overcome from God's side. God is not there, God is here. Now, we still don't get that. I even think of it sometimes when I give communion here, or anybody does, and then after they've received communion, they genuflect to the tabernacle. That means you missed the point. Christ isn't over there, he's in you. But we are so trained to think of God as distant, far, away, above, anything but enfleshed within us. So that's probably most people's favorite feast, Christmas. And it takes us 4 weeks to get ready for it. Then after a few interim weeks, we enter into Lent. I think this year it begins in early March. And that is basically the 40 days symbolizing life. It's trials, it's tribulations, it's disappointments, it's regrets, it's betrayals. Everything Jesus walks through is a prediction of what every human being is going to walk through. So just remember that in the whole liturgical year. Every statement about Jesus is a statement about you, a statement about humanity. It's not just, well, let's worship Jesus because he did this. No, he's telling you this is what's going to happen to you. You also are the incarnate children of God. You also have to walk the journey just as he did, symbolized by the 40 days of Easter. Then reaching its climax in Santa Semana, Holy Week, where it becomes very intense. Holy Thursday, the betrayal, the agony in the garden. Good Friday, the only day where we don't celebrate Mass because it's as if the whole world has become one giant Mass, one giant dying of God, where we face not just Jesus' death, but our own. They say that when we cry at funerals, whether we know it or not, we're always crying about our own death. We know someday we're going to be laying right there. And that's the one thing we all want to deny, but Jesus takes it on trustfully, straightforwardly on Good Friday. Then Holy Saturday, the Sabbath of Sabbaths, the day of again waiting, without answers, without assurance, all leading to the third day that we call Easter. But I'm convinced that one reason Catholics don't tend to be that excited about Easter. They really don't. You've got to go to an Orthodox church to see people who get very excited about Easter. You know why? Because the Eastern Church rightly believed that it was about all of us rising, not just lone Jesus. We human beings don't tend to be interested in something unless it includes us. I guess that's our natural egocentricity. And on Easter we have the universalization. Christ moves from the limited body of Jesus to the universal body of Christ, which includes you and everybody else. Then it takes us 40 days to absorb that mystery, the 40 days of Easter time, where we say, could it be possible that Christ is risen in me, in us, in creation? It still seems to most people incomprehensible. All leading up to the 40th day. 40 is the great symbolic number in the Bible, when Jesus ascends into heaven. Now, what does that mean? That means the whole mystery comes full circle. Jesus in God comes out of God into the world, walks the mystery of life and death just like we do, and returns to God. The circle is complete, and that's called the Feast of the Ascension. Most people don't make too much of it, but it's a promise of how you are going to end too. Then 10 days after that, we end the liturgical year with the great Feast of Pentecost, where the Spirit overshadows all the people symbolized by the disciples, and the Spirit is poured out on many languages, many nations, and all the earth. What it's all saying is we have a universal message. It was never meant to be a tribal religion. It was never meant to be for a few saved and superior people. What's true of Jesus is true of everybody. What's true of Jesus is true for you. It's so simple, it's hard to teach. It's so obvious, we have to keep saying it. But you just heard it. Now we hope you can walk this new year with hope, expectation, and ever-deepening love and desire.